Hey guys, what's up? It's John back here with UW today. We're really excited to have Chaz Skelly on our podcast. Chaz is a storied UFC fighter, an MMA fighter, multiple leagues, multiple years, also a wrestler, NCAA wrestler, right?
Yep.
He's got all sorts of knowledge to drop on us today. Super excited. I'm gonna hand it over to Chaz. He'll talk about himself, and then we're gonna dive into it.
What's up, guys? So
What's
yeah, I've been, I guess, for the last, I don't know, since 2013 I've been in the UFC. I started fighting mixed martial arts around 2008, I believe, when I was done with college. And my whole life I've been a wrestler. I started wrestling when I was 4 years old, all the way up through high school state champ, college All American, NAIA college All American, not NCAA, but I did wrestle NCAA. I wrestled basically every division in college. I transferred around, kind of a nomad or a gypsy, I guess.
Pretty
And
man.
then, yeah, after college wrestling, I transferred over into mixed martial arts and made my way through the UFC for several years, and then here I am.
Were
Yeah,
you wrestling before you got to high school? Did you grow up wrestling? Did you start when you were really young, or was it something you picked up like in your teens?
No, I started when I was 4. My family, so my first team growing up was the Skelly Scrappers. It was my dad and uncle. When I lived in north central Pennsylvania, up in the hills, and Tioga, Pennsylvania, my uncle Lynn and my dad Terry, they coached the team there in Tioga, and that's where I got my start. My cousins, my brothers, my dad, my uncles. We're from a wrestling family.
The Skelly Scrappers, man, was that like Appalachia, like history went back to like bar fights and things like that, and
Oh, you know it. Yeah, that's like the Appalachian Range up there. We live by our own set of rules.
Sounds like a bowling team, Skelly Scrappers. Did you play other sports, or were you just like straight up grappling since you were 4 years old, or was it like you played football, baseball, and threw wrestling in, or was it just like grappling year round?
Yeah, no, wrestling, football, and baseball all year. Like one season to the next. Um, Growing up, I always wanted to wrestle during the summers and stuff, do freestyle and Greco, but my dad didn't want me to. Just he didn't want me to get burned out. Probably another thing for him is, he worked full time and then had his side business. So when he wasn't working, he was taking me to practice or to tournaments, every weekend at a tournament. Those wrestling tournaments are long, man, especially back then. They're doing them a little bit different now. I think they've structured them more like jiu-jitsu tournaments now, because there's a difference. Like wrestling tournaments would be like, they go up, you start at what, like 8 and under, 6 and under, whatever. Then it goes through all the weight classes. Then you go to 8 and under, goes through all the weight classes. Then this is the first round. Then it goes to 10 and under, all the weight classes, 12 and under. And then you go back for the second round, and it does it over again. So it's like a full day of sitting in the bleachers. I mean, you're there all day, usually 2 days. And so it's your whole weekend. Well, now I think that they've kind of restructured a lot of the tournaments to where more like jiu-jitsu tournaments, where you just go through a weight class or you go through an age division. And then at 10 o'clock, the next age division comes in. It makes more sense to do it like that. You're wrestling more.
it's like a science now. Like back in the early days of jiu-jitsu tournaments, like what was it, Grapple Quest and Naga, you'd go to like a high school gymnasium and wait for like 6 hours to go on. By the time you went on, you're like ready to go home, and like you're completely spent.
Yeah, I have dialed it in where you would have a time and your weight class went, and you'd weigh in right there. They'd corral your whole weight class, check you right there, and then once you went through there, they're ripping through your whole division until the finals right then. So you might have a match, you wait on the side for 15, 20 minutes, then you have another match, then you wait again. So if your division goes at 2 o'clock, you don't have to be there till 12:30, 1 o'clock. So you're not sitting there all day. So yeah, that was a relief, because I started on those same ones like Nagas, where you show up in the morning and maybe you go at 10 a.m., maybe you go at 3 p.m.
Dude, I got a funny story about when I first started jiu-jitsu. Well, I guess I was a blue belt, and I did wear a gi back a long time ago before I started mixed martial arts, or right when I first started mixed martial arts, I would do no gi and gi, and then I kind of switched to just no gi for mixed martial arts. I thought it was just, I didn't really think that no-gi was very necessary. Not that it doesn't help, because it does, but I just didn't think with all the other training, you know, wrestling, striking, jiu-jitsu, I thought that no-gi was just more conducive to the sport. Well, I went and I joined a tournament. I guess it was like a Naga tournament or something probably. And I did like the expert division, no-gi, and then I did the, what do you call, like, no weight classes?
Absolute.
The absolute, and then I did the absolute division, and then I did the blue belt gi, and then I did the absolute gi division. And somehow the times got mixed up, and all 4 of my divisions went at the exact same time. So I literally went from one match to the next match to the next match, and they're waiting on me. I've got my gi on. I've got to run from this side of the gym right after this match, all the way across, taking my gi off, go over there, wrestling in my spandex. You know, I just got my spandex on underneath. I'm like, fuck it, boom, boom, boom. Take my gi off, go straight from there back over to a gi absolute match, straight from there to a gi blue belt match. It was nuts, dude. I grappled like, I mean, I ended up getting first in all divisions and second in the absolute gi division. I lost to this dude that was just like Jeep size, and I was so spent. After I came off the mat in that match, I was coming off the mat and I projectile vomited. There was a lady,
Yes.
there was a lady standing there with a baby in a stroller. Like, she's standing next to the stroller. I come off the mat and I can't even hold it. I'm just like, and I look and I see a baby. I'm about to throw up on a baby. So I just like turned my head and threw up all over this kid's mom. I couldn't hold it. I was trying to. I was like, threw up all over. I was just like, I'm so sorry. She's like, thank you for not throwing up on my baby. You know,
It wasn't like a Stand By Me situation where it started like a mass puking domino effect.
I wish.
At the state fair when I stepped off the Gravitron, and I did hit somebody with my vomit.
Is that the one that spit? Is that the one that spins super fast?
I shut down the ride for an hour. I barked inside the Gravitron, got out, and hit 2 more people 3 steps outside the Gravitron. Everyone hated me. I had to leave. The state fair. This was my senior year in high school. It was.
Well, you're not the only person who's done that. I'll guarantee you. That thing is wild.
So you actually.
How did you go? How did you go from? I remember I started jiu-jitsu in 2006, and amateur MMA was kind of becoming a thing. Like, the path to go from like I'm a grappler or I do jiu-jitsu to pro MMA was not clear and was not easy to navigate. How did you I guess I have a couple of questions for you related to that. One is when did you make a decision and how did you make that step? And is it something that you wanted to do when you were wrestling? Was that next level for you to go to professional mixed martial arts? I guess the process and the motivation. To give you some context, we talked to Luke Becker a couple of weeks ago as a coach at the University of Minnesota, and he was talking about now how they see this massive effect of mixed martial arts and wrestling, and how they have their program is starting to cater towards people like Logan Storley, Michael Lacus, guys that want to go from the wrestling in college to MMA in the pros. So kind of curious, as you navigated at a time when it was way less obvious how to do it than it is now.
Well, for me, it was a little weird because I came out of college and like I said, I had transferred around a lot, so that made me ineligible, a couple of semesters, and I felt like I didn't really accomplish what I wanted to accomplish in college wrestling. I felt like I had a lot of competition left in me. I was kind of a shithead when I was young, and then I started to mature a little bit, as I got older, and I was like, man, I really kind of wasted a lot of my competition years in college. I wish I hadn't have done that. And so when I came out, I was coaching some kids in a gym. They're like my little brothers. I was coaching them. We were lifting weights, and this random lady comes up to me and she says, "Are you a wrestler?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a wrestler." I was wearing a wrestling t-shirt, and they were wearing wrestling t-shirts. And she's like, "Well, you're the size of the guy who runs my gym. He's a professional mixed martial artist. You're like his size, and he's always complaining that he doesn't have any wrestling partners in Texas. He's from Ohio. Could you, if I gave you his number or my husband's number, could you hit them up and come in and practice with him? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, for sure. I was actually at that time home for the summer from college wrestling still. I hadn't even quit. I wasn't even out of school yet. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Well, it ended up being a guy named Johnny Bedford. Johnny Bedford fought in the UFC, bare knuckle champ. Johnny's been around the sport forever. So I went in and practiced with him, and then the rest is history. Kind of, I really started liking it. I went back to school, came back the next year. I was done with school, and Johnny had a Guy Metzger opened a gym in Dallas, and they basically were doing like an amateur dual meet between Johnny's gym and Guy Metzger's gym for their grand opening. Well, Guy Metzger's gym was kind of sandbagging the guy. They said he didn't have much grappling, or striking, and to match him up with somebody kind of sucked. And so Johnny matched him up with a guy from his gym that kind of sucked. And come to find out, they find out a couple days before the fights are supposed to happen. The guy was a Golden Gloves boxing champ. He was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and he was 185 pounds. So it's not like he wasn't like any slouch in grappling or striking. Johnny came to me. Actually, I think we were drinking. We like went out, and he's like, "Hey man, this weekend you want to fight?" And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, they're trying to sandbag this guy. I want you to go in there. His exact words were, I want you to go in there and just wrestle fuck the guy, basically, for 3 rounds. He's like, dude, no problem. Your wrestling's great. You'll go in there. You'll mess him up. Don't worry about it. And I was like, sure, let's do it. So I went and I fought that guy for 3 rounds over at Guy Metzger's gym, and I was kind of hooked. I think a couple weekends later, I went up to Louisiana and fought another couple amateur fights, and then I was like, I might as well start fighting pro. Why not? I want to get paid for it. I didn't plan on at the time fighting being a career or anything. I just was like, yeah, I'll fight some people for money. That sounds like fun. I fight people anyways. Like I said, I was a shithead when I was younger. I was like, I fight people all the time. I'll get paid to do it. That'll be fun.
So your first experience with MMA was actually fighting in an MMA fight, and then you decided to train after your first MMA fight.
That's not completely accurate, G-Dump, because he started with Skelly Scrappers, man. That's when the first MMA started.
As a wrestler, on a week's notice, he fights a guy that's sandbagging, and then says, you know what, this is actually something I'd like to do, and then start training MMA all around. So that's pretty impressive. So you went from that, and let's talk about your record. Actually, you have a pretty impressive MMA record. First of all, what's your nickname? And then what's your professional record? And then don't you have some records in the UFC as well?
Yeah. So my nickname, my fight name, I guess, like Chaz the Scrapper Skelly. So that's and that originates from the Skelly Scrappers, obviously, growing up. So it's always kind of been like a moniker or, kind of a deal with me. Always had kind of a scrappy style too with wrestling. I was never nice about wrestling. I mean, it's a combat sport, so you gotta be aggressive out there. It's an aggressive, grindy sport. My professional mixed martial arts record is 19-3 and let's see, what was the other? Oh yeah, so in the UFC, I guess I got a record for fastest submission in featherweight history in the UFC against a guy named Maximo Blanco. I hit him with anaconda choke. I went from a guillotine, arm-in guillotine. He tried to roll, and I hit him with the anaconda choke. And then I had the fastest turnaround. So 2 wins in 13 days. That's been beaten by Chimaev. So he's got it in 10 days now. And then I've got, I think, I used to have, I don't know what it is now. I haven't kept up, obviously. But I had second most submissions and third most finishes or something in featherweight history. So actually somebody just sent me a screenshot of it. It came up on the TV like this last week. Somebody was fighting Brian Ortega, maybe got a submission, and now I think I'm tied with him for second most submissions or something. Somebody sent me a screenshot of it from their TV, so I was like, oh, that's cool. Still in there.
That's pretty good company. So 19-3-1, that's a great professional record. And how many of those fights were in the UFC?
I think I was either 10 or 11-0 when I got into the UFC. So 12 or 13. 12 or 13 of those. Yeah.
That's That's a pretty good stretch. How many years was that? Over how much time were you
So
actually?
I started in the UFC in 2014, and so 2014 to 2022, I would have loved to have stayed more active. I started getting hurt. It's like I had multiple major surgeries, so it'd be like surgery out for a year, fight 2 times, surgery out for a year, fight 2 times. It's kind of how it went for me. Unfortunately, I wish there was a 2 year stretch in my career, or about a year and a half, where I was begging for fights. Before I was in the UFC, I was 9-0, 10-0, something like that. I can't remember, and I was just trying to fight anybody. I mean, anybody, anywhere, anybody that would fight me, and I just could not get a fight. And so the UFC wouldn't sign me. They were packed. The division was just super packed. The roster was pretty much full. I was on the short list there, but they weren't signing anybody, so I was just kind of waiting. I wasn't waiting by choice. I preferred to be fighting, but at that time, it's like they had kind of, the Ultimate Fighter was a newer thing. So, but they were only doing, the Ultimate Fighter was like when they had your weight class, you had to go for the tryout. I actually went for a tryout. I have a funny story about that too, but I actually went for a tryout for the Ultimate Fighter, made it all the way through the interview process, and then didn't get picked. Johnny Bedford actually got picked for that season. And so the only way in at that time was to fight your way in. So it's like, it wasn't like now. Now there's all kinds of avenues to get in. The roster's a lot bigger. They take fights on short notice. So basically back then it's like you had to be ready on short notice. They would call you. They might call you on short notice. You either had to be ready or they might just sign you, but you had to fight your way in. So for me, waiting around wasn't an option. I was like, I want to keep fighting, man. They're gonna recognize me eventually if I just fight everybody. But I just couldn't get a fight.
So you fought in featherweight. Is that what you walk around as, or did you have a big? Was that like a big exercise every single time to get down to that weight class?
Oh, I cut a ton of weight. I walked around usually about 180. Yeah, I'm weighing at 146. So it was
Crazy. You're walking around at 180 and you're weighing in at 146.
yeah, sometimes 175. But generally I'd be up around the one.
So
I
you
got
dropped
higher than
30 pounds fighting, and you're weighing in the day before the fight. Is that right?
yeah,
Right.
24 hours before, just the day
Okay.
before now. So it used to be at like 6 p.m. The weigh-ins would be in the evening on Friday. Now they've switched it to like 9 a.m., 8 or 9 a.m., whatever, in the morning, which is great. It's so much better, being able to wake up, go straight to weigh-ins and get that over with, because you're dying. You're dying the whole day before cutting weight, and then to get on weight and just have to wait around till 6 p.m. is like torture. Not to mention you have less time to rehydrate before the fight, so it's actually more dangerous. You're pulling fluids during these hard weight cuts, which there's something to be said about this. I mean, you can say, well, you don't have to cut weight like that. Well, yeah, that's true, but the culture, so many people cut weight like that. So if you don't, you're at a size disadvantage a lot of the times.
If you're
But
weighing in at 146, and then you go rehydrate, get nutrients back, what are you fighting at that next day? Are you fighting like at 160, 170, or what does that look like?
yeah, I tried my hardest to keep my weight around like 163, 164. That's where I felt best. So if I got up higher than that, I would start feeling sluggish. I'd be
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
retention water. It's not a good deal. You don't want to overdo it. You want to stay like when you start rehydrating and you get that food in your body. A lot of times these guys, they'll go and just eat whatever. They're like, I got a carb load, so they go and eat a bunch of pasta and shit where they've been their whole camp. They've been eating healthy, clean, fish, good proteins, good healthy proteins that are burning off pretty fast, and some good fats. But they would go and just carb load with pasta at Olive Garden or some shit, like eating, the whatever spaghetti sauce full of sugar and full of, it's not good. It's not good for you. So you want to stay, even though it's almost torturous, because you already made weight and you can eat whatever you want if you want. You still got to eat that. I would eat exactly what I would have eaten the day before, that good stuff. But I would add carbs, obviously, but good carbs, not I'm not going to Olive Garden eating pasta for sure.
Have it down to a science now. It's not a secret. They're not hitting the Olive Garden unlimited breadsticks.
Yeah.
They ease it back up, right? They just kind of put the electrolytes back in, put some water back in, and then put some like easily digestible stuff back in.
Yeah, they do. You'd be shocked though. You'd be shocked if you went and you saw after the weigh-ins, and you could you could spend the day with every fighter on a card. What do you say? They have like 10, 12 fights on a card. So 24 fighters on a card, say. And you got to spend that evening with every one of those fighters and see what they do post weigh-in. You would be shocked to see how many of these guys are still idiots.
What was the worst one you saw? Don't name names or do, but who was the worst that you saw post weigh-in? The biggest idiot, like Steve Carell from The Office, carb loading fettuccine Alfredo before a triathlon.
Things that one of the worst things that I saw, and I'm not going to name any names, but we went to eat after the weigh-ins, and he had made weight, and he went and got like it was like a 16 ounce, 20 ounce ribeye, and with a side of pasta, and I was just like, dude, you are not doing yourself any favors. You're eating fatty red meat that's going to stick with you, and then you're eating pasta that's highly processed. That's just like high in sugar. Everything that you're eating is just not going to be good. And you're just like, whatever. Next day, fight's terrible. I felt so sluggish. I had a terrible weight cut. I was like, yeah, your weight cut wasn't great, but your rehydration, your refueling process was just all wrong. You need to go back and you need to think about what you're doing, because you're wasting all this time, man. It's like you put all this work in. You put all this work in to get down to weight, to train for the fight, just to ruin it with one meal? Like, why? Why? It doesn't make sense.
He lost, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Leading up to these fights, where did you spend your time? Like, what did you find was most impactful for you as an athlete to prepare? Was it? I know there's an all-above answer with film, strength and conditioning, and mat time and back time, but like sparring, what were the things that like you really benefited from? You felt prepared you the best for the fights?
I'm kind of one of those people that I know as I got older in my career, it changed a little bit. Just because of my body not holding up, and this is probably part of the reason. But I always felt like to get my timing and to get everything down, I benefited greatly from sparring. I like hard sparring, but where you find the most gains is always going to be in your drilling. So you as far as like your technique, drilling hard, drilling almost like not a slow roll for jiu-jitsu, because that's really slow, but like drilling as in like you're not keeping the guy, you're about a 60-70% on your drill. You're drilling hard. It's like you're touch sparring, you're taking hard shots.
I would say that early in my career I was pretty much primarily a wrestler, but I fell in love with jiu-jitsu right away. So like as soon as I went over and worked out with Johnny like the first time, I realized that I really, 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 really enjoyed jiu-jitsu. So I started spending a lot of time just grappling, just doing jiu-jitsu. I started initially, I just learned submission defense. Like as much I said, because my style of wrestling, I'm a funky wrestler. I'm like a scrambly, a lot of grand knees, a lot of rolling. I don't do things the same way that everybody else does things. I'm a very unorthodox wrestler. So my style of wrestling fit right into jiu-jitsu. It was just like a match made in heaven, basically. So what my primary focus when I first came over and started jiu-jitsu was submission defense. Just don't get submitted, and I'll fuck these guys up, because I'm better positionally. I got the takedowns. I get a point per takedown. I can stay on top. I have great dips, so I'm heavy on top, and just don't get submitted. And once it comes to a scramble, I'll grab the back because I've always been a back rider. Also wrestling, my whole wrestling career, I've always been a top guy. So I've always been a back rider. Legs, right in the back. That was my bread and butter wrestling. So like a lot of, a lot of just like back riding, spladles, cradles, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
man.
Yeah.
I just seen the reemergence Spladle on the Instagram, man. It's like jiu-jitsu is discovering Spladle. Like, dude, I learned that in high school when I was wrestling in like 171 pounds. I was splaying people left and right.
Yeah, I always wanted to finish a play with a spladle. I had a few in fights, but I never got a finish with it. It just was unfortunate. The guys that I had spladles on in fights were crazy flexible.
Did you ever
And
try the Spladle in UFC?
I tried. Well, actually, almost it did cost me a fight. When my very first fight in the UFC, when I was fighting Mirsad Bektic, I had one leg in. At the very third round, I had one leg in, and I thought he was going to post up. I was going to hit him with a spladle. And I ended up sliding over the top. He never posted up. I kind of slid over the top and lost position. But I tried it. I tried it a couple times. I maintained position on the back with it a few times, but I never actually fully hit the spladle in the UFC, which sucks because that's who I am. That's like my stuff. Yeah.
Dude, that would be the best, like, top submissions on ESPN.
I know, man. I hit so many throughout my life, and that's just like where I'm good. And it just sucks that I never hit in the UFC because I always wanted to.
Yeah, man, that would have been perfect. Great highlight reel footage.
Yeah.
What was your most popular submission? Were you hitting Darce, Anaconda, guillotines, or was it? Were you like arm bars, stuff like that?
So I have a really, really, really good Darce, Mars. I like to roll under with it. And I have a good rear naked choke. So those are like my two. When I'm frying lock choking, I'll go Anaconda Darce, that series, but Darce is where I usually like to finish. Or even Mars, like roll under from my back. And when I'm on top, I always work to the back and look the rear naked choke.
Yeah, long, skinny arms, man. You don't have all that muscle getting in the
Let me
way.
raise.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have any muscle getting in the way. Stuff.
It helps. Kind of like Timar's legs.
Yeah, I don't have that problem, man. I have a hard time saying them in because all the fat and muscle gets caught up in somebody's chin. I have to get to get in there.
I got tiny little wrists and stuff too, and they're bony. So like, some people sometimes when over grappling hard, people will be like, everything hurts with you, man. It's just like when we're going hard, it's like if I'm not, everything hurts. Just be so freaking. Well, your arms are so bony. I'm like, whatever.
So when you weren't sparring, you weren't hitting the bags, you weren't working on technique. What else did you do, man? Like, what were the things you did? Obviously, you were in the weight room with the bone. You have to do something to keep them from breaking, right? You were hitting the track. I mean, what were the things that helped build your conditioning off the fight?
So I like a lot of circuit training. So yeah. I actually went over with Hardware. So one of the best places I went for my conditioning. And I guess this will come back around, so I'll kind of explain my mentality. Also, it's different than most people's. I don't as much believe in overtraining as other people. I know there's science behind it. I know, but to me, I feel like the body adapts. If you put your body through torture, if you absolutely break yourself, your body will adapt and you'll overcome that and you'll be way stronger. That was always my philosophy as far as my conditioning. To get my conditioning up, my philosophy was these first 2-3 weeks of camp, I'm literally going to work so hard that I feel feverish. Your body, when you're so tired and you work so hard, your body gets that like feverish feeling. And then I'm going to continue to work, and then my body will adapt and overcome that. And it does. It happened every time for me. So that could be part of the reason I had injuries also. You can bring that into the fold, but my conditioning always got great because of it, because my body can just adapt. So for me, I like to do a lot of really hard circuit training. And towards the end of my career, I started swimming a lot and mountain biking a lot. for cardio. I stay away from running just because I have a few ruptured discs in my lower back, and running would kind of make my back lock up and stuff. So I did run, but I only ran. I would do a long, slow day, an interval day, and then more of like a short fast day. I didn't really run a ton. Where in the beginning of my career, I ran a lot.
Yeah, that's what got me into jiu-jitsu. I hurt my hip when I was in the SEAL team's free fall skydiving guard opening, formerly sacroiliac joint, and the long runs just continued at that. That was the end of that.
Yeah, that's wild. Pretty cool. Like,
So I did something called trash packing. So it was kind of my own fault, right? So trash packing is it's an art form. Basically, make sure your lines are not tangled, and then you throw that thing in the bag, right? And so what happens is it's literally like a Russian roulette when the chute opens. It's either going to be a nice, smooth, roll-packed opening, which is what you want, or it could be like a boom, dead stop, like a drag race car, right?
yeah.
And so I was doing a jump with combat equipment on, and it was uneven. Like I had a little over 100 pounds, and it was sitting on the front of me, on my hips and thighs. And I opened, and I had that forward opening, and then the weight swung and just ripped my hip.
Whoa.
It was terrible, and I was young and dumb, and I had a lot of adrenaline. So then I didn't do anything about it, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And when I finally figured out I had a problem, I was out of the military. I had no benefits. It was terrible. I was in college. I was broke. So I just had to live with it. And then I got into jiu-jitsu specifically because some friends in the military recommended it, and it actually helped out a ton. And now I was walking around with a lot of pain for I'd say 5 to 7 years. And then it took me 3 or 4 years of solid focus on it to where now I don't have much pain. Either my pain receptors died and I don't know it, which is a possibility, or it's just the appetite adapted like how it is when you're doing jiu-jitsu, you get your legs are getting contorted all these different directions, you're getting fresh blood flow constantly through the hip. So I mix up that with therapeutic sports massage, and the combination of the two really has helped, and chiropractic stuff, and that's really helped me deal with the pain.
Nice. Yeah,
So,
it's crazy.
but the running, I used to love running, like long runs, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, I
Never
never
like.
loved running.
No, me neither. Never like. Short, like anything a mile and under, good to go. But anything started getting over a couple miles, I'm like, I don't see the point in this. I would come out of football practice into wrestling season and be completely out of shape. Thing they were doing was running the suicides around the track with your freaking partner on your shoulder, and you're like, get out of here, dude. So I hated running from like high school on. I was just not a fan. I'd rather do the swimming, low impact. Now I'm heavier too, so running anything over a mile, it's not worth it. Not my gig. I find with BJJ, everybody's BJJ is different, right? And a lot of it, like body type, right? You're short and stubby. You have this sort of style. You're tall and gangly. You have these styles and these techniques work for you. So if your coach isn't really your body style, then you probably are learning a lot different game than your coach has. And that usually comes from the partners that you have. So whatever your coach is teaching, you learn that. But honestly, you get 50 to 75% of it from your training partners.
Yeah.
And really, like they're bringing in all this information and technique. And thank God for me, my head coach was my size almost, a little bit short, but a big guy, Roberto Travin, and he was a tall guy and he played open guard. And I was like, dude, I could learn a ton from this guy. But then you see I don't do all these, I'm not inverting constantly like these little guys and these little coaches that get in there. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. It comes from your training partners, to be honest. So I can see how that is completely parallel, where you're learning what your coach is teaching you, but in parallel to that, you're learning all this stuff from everybody else who's out absorbing it from everywhere, including YouTube, and bringing it back into the room. So definitely a parallel to BJJ and MMA there.
Yeah, what, Mike?
Oh, no, go ahead. I was going to ask you how the sport's changed since you started, because you've been in it for so long. But
with while says the line, so with me, as far as jiu-jitsu is concerned, I do owe a lot of my style to one of my coaches, Mark Lehman. Actually, the guy is he could be a little social awkward at times, but man, that guy really, 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 really is a student of the sport and studies the sport, and he kind of formulated a good style of jiu-jitsu for mixed martial arts. He really did. And Mark, when my game, my grappling within mixed martial arts really stepped up a few notches when I started training with Mark, and that was awesome. So I got to bring his style there. So I had a little bit of a different style than a lot of people down there at Killcliff. And so that helped. It was kind of one of those deals at Killcliff, like, I could be going with Sean Soriano, and Sean Soriano, another amazing training partner of mine, I train with all the time. Like I said, when you sit here and talk, I just keep thinking of awesome fighters there. But so one of those deals, it might be like one day, Henry's not corner somebody, Greg's not corner somebody out, and they saw her, so Sean just grab him and say, hey man, let's hit mitts, you hold mitts for me for, an hour, and then we'll do some grappling. We'll drill some grappling. I'll help you out in grappling for like an hour, and that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it there with a team like that. It's like, it's not just grappling. It's like you have to worry about that striking and stuff. And there are world-class strikers in there too. That you can have somebody like Tyron Spum holding pads for you. I don't have to sit here and explain to you what Tyron Spum is. You could be holding pads for you on days. It's like, wow, this is amazing. But as far as the sport changing, I think the biggest thing with the sport of mixed martial arts evolving is just that kids are starting younger, and so you're getting these kids coming up that no longer are just wrestlers, or no longer just jiu-jitsu players, or no longer just boxers or kickboxers. They are complete mixed martial artists, and they're only like 18. You know what I mean? They're only like 19, so they're only going to keep evolving. And they're coming in at a young age being a complete mixed martial artist where I came in just a red rider. I love a bunch of people, but I could throw a technical punch to save my life. I had to learn that. And picking that up at a later age is tougher than just coming up and doing that, doing everything. So that's where it's evolved. It's evolved like this. Evolution, man.
It's all evolving. There's more wrestlers now. The sport of wrestling is actually growing, I think, because of MMA too. And the girls are actually pushing a lot of the growth in the sport. So I think there was over 300,000 high school wrestlers or something this year, which is more than they've had in a long time. So, and you're seeing exactly that. You're seeing these kids that were never specialists in Taekwondo or boxing or kickboxing or wrestling. They just did MMA as a whole from day one. They stepped in an MMA gym and they trained, and so their transitions are flawless. They've learned the perfect amount of each skill, and then they put it together better than people that have been doing the sport for a long time. It's crazy. Back to your other point, socially awkward. I think that actually goes hand in hand to really high skilled grapplers and fighters. It's like every gym has if you don't have like your gym socially awkward. I think it was Craig that said, steroids and autism is the perfect combination for the perfect grappler.
Oh, it's interesting. The sport's always attracted that, right? Like back when you had the Skelly scrappers in the 1800s, they were socially awkward, right? And back as a sport at the highest level, like show me. They're all functional autism.
That's funny. Which brings me to my next point. It's like you can find steroids anywhere. It's the autism that's hard to pick up, right? That's the hard kind of what our product cognition does, right? It gives you super focus that you normally wouldn't have, but it still allows you to go talk to girls later that night, right?
Well,
Oh,
it's funny. It's funny with that because with wrestling, the disorder that goes hand in hand with wrestling, and I feel like ADD, ADHD. You look at some of these wrestlers, man. Like a lot of these wrestlers are like just high functioning, like crazy ADD, crazy ADHD. I mean, I'm not even kidding. Like you could send me they'll be trying to show a movement or wrestler, and these kids aren't even. I don't even know how any of them pick it up. They're not paying attention to like It's literally like attention span of like 4 seconds. You better get that move in and get out of the circle.
Sounds like we have a great target audience, Judo.
It's there. We got it. It's needed. Yeah, you can find steroids anywhere. It's that autism's the hard part. I feel like we could help a lot of people. I really do.
If you're Rain Man for like 3 or 4 hours, what can you do? You can win MMA fights, and you can make a lot of money in Vegas.
That's it.
That's true.
Push them up to the blackjack table. That's it. Well, man, this has been a good conversation, Chaz. I learned a lot that I didn't know about you, and it's all sort of coming into focus. Now I'm understanding the final product here, and for a number of years now. And thanks for joining us on this thing, man.
We'll keep you on cognition, mix them with the roids. The other thing, though, is the gi, man. It helps as you get older. I know you hate it, but it slows the game down.
Well, I'm gonna do it. I'm doing it. I already dedicated myself to get in there and put the gi on, so I'm doing it.
Jiu-jitsu offers you that path because the masters divisions in jiu-jitsu are insanely packed, like insanely.
Yes.
From 35 plus on up to 60 years old, you can find competition nationally that's pretty good, right? You go to these like master worlds with the gi on, and you've got 30-something guys in your bracket. You're like, what the hell? At a random, you've got 5-6 matches, and that's of guys that could have been grappling for their entire life since they're 4 years old, and now they're 40. So yeah, it's not as much wrestling. You find once you hang them up wrestling, you're either coaching or you're a wrestler dad. Out there competing, but jiu-jitsu, man, that path just keeps going, which is it's an outlet for grappling that you can do until you're 56 years old,
Well, because the amazing thing about jiu-jitsu, right, is that you're at your own pace. I mean, wrestling is a hard nose. You're moving forward, you're banging on the head, you're moving somebody, you're trying to create an angle, and then you're blasting through them. You're always constantly pounding, grinding. That's a wrestling match. Jiu-jitsu, there are options. You can do that in jiu-jitsu if you want. You can just go balls to the wall and just kind of grind and say, or you could be more cerebral, take a cerebral approach and be more laid back, like more like a chess match, and you're thinking a couple moves ahead, and you're right there with that guy that's grinding, and you're not working nearly as hard. And so it's like that's the beauty of the sport. I think that there are so many different avenues to be successful with jiu-jitsu that it offers an option for everybody. You don't have to go in there and kill your body. You can be more relaxed and still have a good time. So get some submissions. You don't have to go crazy.
I think that's Chad's way of telling us he's a guard puller now.
Maybe some. I've yet to pull a guard ever in my life, but maybe.
Okay, it'll happen, and you might be like, "Hey, man, that wasn't too bad."
Dude, the master division, there's no takedowns, man. Especially when you like Masters 2 and up. Like we went to the Atlanta Open recently, and every single black belt Masters pulled guard.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, depending on the weight class, the heavier you get, the ratio goes down. They want to be on top more. The lighter weights, it's a race to pull guard because it's just statistically it's easier to sweep than it is to pass. So
with a gi,
at the black belt level, you still get a lot of guard pullers, even at the heavy divisions. But coming up through the belts, all the heavy guys want to be on top.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I gotta be on top.
That's great, man. I appreciate it, man. Look, this is always very insightful. I can't wait to talk to you again. I know you have a lot of insights on you have some really interesting nutrition protocol, but we'll save that for another conversation. But I think like if you were to tell the people listening to go like watch one fight that you had is like that's your signature fight, the one you're most proud of, which one was it?
One fight. You lost one fight. I'll keep it short. I like my fight with Maximo Blanco. I straight out kicked him in the chest and submitted him in 16 seconds.
That's a quick watch. That's great.
because I mean I'm kind of a wild man, and I caught him with a move that I'm so good with in the gym, and I was happy to get a bonus and be able to do it in the fight. So
Some interesting press conferences as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to Google that, Chaz Skelly UFC press conference, you might find. Apparently, he's an amazing singer. So you might dig into that and find some gold. I'm a fan. So
Cool.
What?
Well, thank you so much, man.
yeah, cool. Thanks, guys. It's always a pleasure. I love you here chopping it up with you guys.
good stuff, man. Good stuff. Chaz, we'll be back in touch. T-Mar, this was great.